Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Laura Lutterbach and I am the District Director for Junior Achievement of Southwest Michigan, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you here today for our 2021 Passport to STEM event. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I have the pleasure of introducing Renee Tomino from DTE, and I would like to give a shout out to DTE for being our presenting sponsor for this event today. We are so pleased to have them. So welcome, Renee, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. As she said, I'm Renee Tamina. I'm the Vice President of Gas Operations at DTE Energy, and I'm super excited to be joining you this morning and kicking off this awesome event that is planned. Let me be one of the first to welcome you to Junior Achievement's Passport for STEM event. As many of you might already know, Junior Achievement works with students all the way from kindergarten through high school, and it does things like teaching financial literacy, work and career readiness, and entrepreneurship. And DTE is so proud to support this event and to be a longtime supporter of Junior Achievement. We're always looking for ways to connect with our communities and with the people that we serve, and Junior Achievement really helps us do just that. So during today's event, you're going to be hearing about career readiness from our presenters and from leaders during the breakout session. You're going to hear some great stories. And today we're going to concentrate on STEM. So that's careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I know that can sound pretty intimidating, but I'm going to let all of you in on a little secret. There are plenty of STEM careers that don't require you to be someone who loves math and science. For example, do you love to keep things organized and moving? Project managers are always in demand. Or maybe you're someone who loves to write. Technical writers, they're the people who tell the story of innovation. And there's also jobs like marketing or user experience design and graphic design. So I really encourage you not to walk away from a STEM career just because you think you don't want to go deep in studying science and math. There's certainly plenty of great careers for students who love math and science, but it's not a prerequisite. So I was one of those kids who enjoyed math and science and constant learning, but I'm not sure that I always knew that I wanted to be an engineer. I knew that I wanted to do something where I could work in an environment that was creative and innovative and always changing. And I also knew that I wanted to work with people where we could work collaboratively to solve problems. So my dad did say, Renee, you're good in math, you're good in science, and you like to solve problems. You should try to go be an engineer. And I did that. And in my career, I've had the great opportunity to serve in roles that have really helped to drive our communities and impact people's lives. And I've been able to do things from building cars so that people can get to work and school, all the way to providing energy that helps keeps your homes warm. My career path is just one example of how STEM skill sets can help to create that solid foundation that can be applied in a lot of different ways and really make a difference in people's lives. And that was my journey. And yours, it's going to likely be different, and that's okay. But I encourage you to take advantage of opportunities like the one today to explore what career might challenge and inspire you. There's more careers out there than you can imagine, and I know that you're going to find one that's just right for you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Joy Harris. She is DTE's Senior Vice President of Major Enterprise Project, and she is a great friend of mine. As I've gotten to know Joy and to work with her over the last several years, I've really had the opportunity to observe and to learn from her leadership. And you're going to find that she is someone who really cares about our community, our customers, and our employees. She's always willing to give of her time and her talent to help others in need. She's incredibly smart and funny and hardworking, and she's a great example for young women. In her role at DTE, Joy is responsible for leading project management and the planning and the execution of our company's largest initiatives, including the construction of our wind and our solar park. So pretty cool. She has also been a leader in DTE's response to our COVID pandemic. She's ensured that the energy continues to flow while we keep our employees, our customers, and our communities safe. Joy also serves as Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program. She's a member of the Wayne State University's College of Engineering Board of Visitors and Industrial Engineering Advisory Board, and she has participated in the Cornerstone Partnership Program. Joy was chosen by the Michigan Chronicle as one of the Women of Excellence, recognized by Who's Who in Black Detroit, and honored at the 2016 Women of Color STEM Conference for her career achievements. Please help me in welcoming Joy.
And good morning, everyone, and thank you, Renee. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so glad to be here with you all today. I wish I could see you all in person, but we're not there yet, but we will be there soon. I just want to take a little time and share a little bit about my journey, what I do for DTE, but more importantly, talk to you a little bit about, my family and how I arrived here. I brought along a few photos that help me tell this story, and you can see me in the upper left-hand corner. That's me in 8th grade. 8th grade, many of you are in the 7th or 8th grade. And you can see that's my family, my children below me. To the far right, that's my husband. To the bottom right, those are my siblings and my parents. And they are really critical in terms of how I arrived where I am today and what I'm doing today. And my journey really started with my dad. My dad is by far the best engineer I know, who never had an opportunity to attend college. And, when I was about your age, I was really curious, very curious. I wanted to understand how things worked. I wanted to learn a little bit more. I took things apart in my house, drove my parents crazy, took everything apart in the house and tried to put it back together. But my dad, he could fix anything and everything. And in fact, he allowed me to participate in a lot of that activity. He worked on cars, he worked on televisions, he worked on furnaces, you name it. My dad could fix it. And he just let me dive in. And, when we would work on cars, he would explain everything about the car, explain why, he was working on this particular part and what that part did. And that just simply intrigued me and really set the stage for where I am today. And so I took that curious side, if you will, and I launched into programming. My parents found programming just like the program that you are in today that helped me kind of nurture that curiosity. And from probably the age of, I want to say it was maybe about 12 or 13, I was involved in Saturday classes where we learned about STEM. We learned math enrichment. We did a lot of experimenting, a whole lot of experimenting, and we did so on university campuses. And so it wasn't really until I got to maybe the 10th grade that I really started thinking seriously about engineering. In fact, as an assignment for one of my classes, I was asked to shadow a group of a person in a profession that I was interested in. And for me, that was engineering. And so I shadow engineers at DTE in the 10th grade. And let me just tell you, that was a wonderful, wonderful experience and set me on the path that I'm on today. The engineers there were working on some really exciting projects, and they certainly took a keen interest in what I wanted to do and shared their experience. And so that's largely why I'm here today, to share my experience with the hopes that you too will become inspired and curious and want to learn more. And then you too can either go down the path of STEM or some other interests you may have. But that really was what set me down the path to engineering. It was that shadow experience. And today, what I work on is some really large projects, as Renee talked about. The biggest project I have going on right now is the Blue Water Energy Center. And it is a natural gas power plant that is located in East China. It will go into operation on June 1st of 2022. It's going to take us 3 years to fully construct of the power plant. The two units that we're installing will generate enough energy to power 850,000 homes when we're all said and done. And so we had to bring in lots of materials. There were no fewer than 600 people, and they're actually still working out there today, constructing this facility. And if you go to the next slide, you will be able to see how this is maturing over time. This is showing you pictures of the combustion turbine, the heat recovery steam engine, and some of the admin buildings in the bottom right corner that are located at the site. And you're going to be able to see in a minute or less just how much work we've done at the facility over the last year and a half, 2 years. And this is where it all starts, the piling that happens to stabilize the foundation. You'll see all the cranes that showed up on site, the really large crane. You'll see some of the structures start to come out of the ground. The HRSG, the heat recovery steam generator, is under construction there. You'll see where they set the turbine themselves. Lots of activity, and this is just really exciting work. There is the switch yard that's right in front of you, so that's how we'll connect to the grid. And there's a water treatment facility that's to the right. You need a lot of water to run a power plant. This is blue water as it stands today, and so that facility will go into production, if you will, on June 1st of 2022. I also work on wind turbines and wind farms. We build lots of wind farms across the state. This is the Fairbanks wind farm that is located in the UP. And this wind farm is 72 megawatts. And you can see the turbine and the cranes installing the gearbox. And up top of the tower, you can see the gearbox that is actually on the ground there before it gets installed. And if you go to the next slide, our biggest wind park is the Isabella 1 and 2. And that wind park just completed about 3 weeks ago. And this wind park is 383 megawatts. You can power roughly, I want to say it's about 100,000 homes with this particular wind park. That's a big transformer. You can see the transmission line that's being installed to connect to the substation. You can see where they're boring in the collector system. And so all of the lines that connect to the substation have to be buried underground, and they're buried in this case under farmland. If you go to the next slide, you'll see how we erect a wind turbine. So this is the tower that goes up in pieces, and the tower is actually, at the end of the day, it'll turn out to be about 300 to 350 feet tall. And then you'll see where they install the gearbox. It'll go up top, and this is what we call topping off. You'll see the blades go on, and each one of those blades is roughly 114 to 15 feet long. So from tip to the ground, from the tip of the blade to the ground is roughly 500 feet. We also build solar arrays, and this is one of the solar arrays that we've installed at Ford Motor Company. This is on top of their parking garage, and the energy generated from the solar panels is transported down into the garage itself, and it powers electric vehicles. So you can see the connecting stations where the electric vehicles can be recharged. So that's one of the arrays that we have underway. If you go to the next slide, you can see a really large solar array that's under construction. So whitetail solar array, And then we have fresh water, and you can see the locations on the map of Michigan. These 2 solar arrays are still under construction, and my team is charged with making sure that all of this happens. And this is just the exciting work that we have here at DTE as we build our energy future. And I'm just so thrilled and so proud to be a part of this work. It means so much to our future. It means so much to our community. It means so much to you all. And I am blessed and fortunate to be a part of it. If you go to the next slide. I'm also building a new system operations center that will serve our electric grid. It is the brains of our electric grid. You can see this is a rendering of what it will look like after it's all done. And we're scheduled to complete this work in October of this year. It's taken us a couple years to get this off the ground, and I'm happy to report we're right on track. It'll be a state-of-the-art facility. And if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the panels that are being installed. So the operators there will use that display screen to see the entire grid here in Michigan and route energy accordingly and address outages as they occur and make sure that, you know, we can deliver on our promise of reliable energy for the great state of Michigan. And if you go to the next slide, to accompany the System Operations Center, we're also installing what we call the ADMS outage management system. So I get to build not only wind parks and solar arrays and substations and also power plants, but also computer systems. And so this particular computer system will help us respond more efficiently and more effectively to outages. So when lightning strikes and you get a power outage at your home, the AMI meter will sense the power outage and send that data over to our electric dispatch system, or OMS, so it's our outage management system. That system will be used to route our crews to get to your location to restore your power timely. They will use a system called Compass to record what they actually did and make sure that, you know, we've got an accounting of all the work that transpired. And then they will perform their work and update the system and then make sure that your power is in fact restored. So this is just a rendering of how that system works, but know that our crews are currently using an older system that performs much of the same functions. This will make it much, much easier for us to execute outage restoration going forward. Next slide. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my journey. I think my career is the perfect marriage of all the things that are important to me: community, family, science, and math. And it is just a perfect way for me to do what I do best and do what I love. And so these are just some of the photos of me out in the field doing the work of DTE and having a great time doing it, and then doing the work of the community, helping young people. So if you leave this discussion with anything, I hope you see what is possible. But I want you to also know one thing, is that there are so many people like me that care about you, that are here to help you reach your aspirations, and that are willing to give their discretionary energy toward helping you get there. So don't hesitate to reach out, just like I did to get a shadow experience. Reach out to someone who's in a career that you're interested in, learn about it, engage in it early, and then figure out what you need to do to get to your goal. And with that, I will end the discussion and tell you great luck to you all. I hope you all enjoyed today's event and you learn a lot, and that you become very much inspired to do great things in the future, because we need you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. We appreciate you presenting today and sharing such an insightful presentation. It was exciting to learn about the cool things DTE is doing in our state and your part in that. So we really appreciate that you could join us today. Again, my name is Laura Lutterbach, and I'm the district director for Junior Achievement of Southwest Michigan. and I have the pleasure of introducing our remaining speakers today. So to stay on our timeline, I'm going to jump right in and introduce our next impressive speaker, Jessica Frick. Jessica is the Director of Managed Applications at Liquid Web, overseeing a multi-million-dollar portion of the business that's focused on bringing the best web applications to consumers with the best performance possible. Prior to her current role, she has served as an operations executive for a software and digital commerce company, oversaw the operations of an advertising agency, and once worked for Chuck E. Cheese, where she dressed up as Helen Henny for birthday parties. When she's not obsessing about all things digital, you can find her enjoying quality time with her family, binging a sci-fi series, working in her garden, or brewing some iced tea. Please help me welcome Jessica Frick.
Hello, everybody. So good to see you all. If we can go to the first slide, I would love to tell you more about why STEM is awesome. So first, Jessica Frick, I am Director of Managed Applications. What that means in plain language is web hosting with apps, like, apps on your phone, except these apps build websites and build stores. Some of the stores that we host sell millions of dollars a year. A couple of them that you might have heard of, Tops, like the little baseball cards. They just did a huge sale, including a collab with Snoop Dogg. And so you can imagine what kind of web traffic that brought. My team helps make sure that those stores stay up and continue selling millions of dollars. If you can go to the next slide, I can tell you that I've come a long way. This is me in 8th grade. I will be honest with you guys. I was certainly not the popular kid. My grades were good enough. My home life was challenging, to say the least. School was really not all that exciting for me. And I think it's largely because I didn't really see a point in a lot of the stuff that I was learning. I would love to tell you that science and math were my absolute favorites. Science became one of my favorites later on, but it was certain topics, and I think it's because I didn't understand how it was going to benefit me in the future. But I can tell you that I did a lot to help my younger brothers, and through them, I developed more of a love for science and math. Funny how teaching helps you learn stuff better, huh? But I will say I had no idea I was going to end up in tech. I thought I was going to become a famous actress millionaire. That didn't work out, but what did work out was pretty cool. If you can go to the next slide, I want to tell you guys some things that they won't tell you before you go into tech. So I am in web tech specifically, but I've worked in a lot of different tech industries. In fact, my whole career has been in technology of one sort or another. Obviously, I'm here to tell you how cool it is, but I also want to keep it real. There are some downsides. If you'll go to the next slide, we'll see the first one. This. When you work in technology, everyone who knows you and knows what you do is going to ask you to fix their stuff. You're going to show up to a party and they'll be like, oh my gosh, Jess, can you fix my phone? Or you're going to go visit your friends and they're like, oh, Jess, can you fix my printer? No, like that, but you should be prepared. Everybody's going to look to you to be their tech person. The next slide will show you that the second thing they don't tell you about working in tech is the minute you think you've got technology figured out, it's already outdated. And this is true for all technology. It's also a really cool thing because everything's always changing. So, 1 minute you have completely figured out how to optimize storage for a whole database of information and perhaps photos. Well, we'll say photographs. Who here takes 1 million photos on their phone? Me, yeah, for sure. And you might figure out the coolest way to optimize it. I promise you somebody else is working on a cooler way already. And that's the best part, honestly, is that it's always changing. The third one is everyone is going to think that you are super smart. If you can go to the next slide. Tech has a way of making people think that you know everything that's going on with tech. I have good news for you. You don't have to be crazy smart to be awesome at tech, but it helps. If we can go to the next slide. Bottom line is technology is awesome. Let me give you a little bit about my background. If we can go to the next slide. Like I told you guys, my childhood was kind of strained. I mean, I wasn't really handed everything in my life. But you know, with money always being an issue, I didn't really have a lot of the coolest stuff that everybody else did. But what I did have was a dad who went out of his way to make sure that I got an Apple II GS for my 10th birthday. For those who are trying to figure out how long ago that would have been around 1987, 88. And let's talk about the tech on this. The RAM on here was a 256 kilobyte piece of RAM, and it would max out at 8 megabytes. For my gamers in the room, you guys know that you can't even play on a computer that's less than 8 gigabytes. So this was like breaking technology when I was younger. But I'll tell you, this thing became my first love. I spent so much time on this computer, it meant the world to me. And you know, that mouse that you see, this was groundbreaking. It was like the first mouse that they included with computers. And so like Joy, who by the way is awesome, I think she's amazing. I started by taking stuff apart on computers. I didn't take this computer apart, but what I would do is I would look at the source code for everything that I was using. You know, back then you'd put a floppy disk in and you'd play a game. There are ways to look at the source code and understand how it's all put together, the basic building blocks. As things progressed and the internet got cooler, if you go to the next slide, I learned how to build websites. And today there are going to be people that will sell you expensive web design courses. With all due respect to them, don't do that. The coolest part about working in web tech is you've never had more resources to learn how to do this stuff. You can do it today for free. So when you're building a website, you can right click and view source code. And that's honestly how I started learning, was I was seeing how everything was put together, and then I was testing. I was playing around myself and trying to figure out how to replicate things. You know, video games, same thing, just trying to understand what they were doing to make the guy run across the screen. I don't know how many of you have ever played with Scratch, but that's a great way to get started with the basic building blocks of code. I would encourage you to go and look at one of your favorite websites later today and right click to view the source code and just kind of understand what's going on. When you first look at it, it's going to be kind of intimidating. Don't worry. It's not like I look at that and I'm like, oh, I can read it like I'm reading a book. But you'll kind of understand what the context is when you're seeing basic words, because a lot of the time they're using natural language in some of this. You know, you'll see the words on the screen and you'll understand how those are coded to be on there. And honestly, it's just about practicing like everything else. Figure out how other people are doing it and you can do it yourself. That all said, I got good enough and I started selling websites by the time I got into college. When I was in college, I had 3 jobs to pay all my bills. I started at community college, and then I got a full ride to a very nice college. Fun fact, if you are applying to colleges later, try the smaller schools too. I found that I was only able to get half a scholarship at one of the major state universities, but the smaller school gave me a full ride. So there's something to consider, especially if you're looking to get into tech. There are a lot of scholarships available for people that want to get into technology that, you know, wouldn't necessarily work if you wanted to get into art or English or history. So keep an eye out for that. And I know that you guys are in middle school and you've got a ways to go, but it's something cool to know that no matter your financial resources, there are programs to help you go to college if you want to. As for me, in addition to all of my different jobs, I was selling websites and, you know, doing stuff like that. I worked at a radio station and that was super cool. Another technology job. But when I graduated, like most people, I grew up in the same town and I was ready to get out. So if you look at the next one, like Joy before me, I went to DC and started working with a renewable energy think tank. So when you hear about a DC think tank, it sounds super fancy. Let me just tell you what it actually is. A think tank is a body of experts, usually in political or economic areas, and they're just providing advice or insight related to their specific area of interest. My think tank was all about renewables. We really focused on geothermal energy, energy directly from the earth. And that was pretty cool. That job let me go even to Al Gore's house, where I helped oversee his installation of a geothermal heat pump at his house. I got to help write some legislation that went into the green building codes that helped people get specific points for their stuff. And I missed working online. So if you go to the next slide, I started my own business. Some things about entrepreneurship. First, you get to be the CEO overnight, which is awesome, but you learn that you're probably not the world's best boss. Another thing is you need to be aware that as glitzy as it sounds, there's this wonderful thing called taxes, and it's super complicated. So when you're ready to start your own business, I highly recommend getting somebody who's smart in that stuff before you do it. I learned a very expensive lesson there, but it was a great return on investment. If you go to the next slide, from there, I was hired by another company. So I still had my own business and I was consulting for technology firms, but I started working in a software company and that evolved. It started at 1 million and went to 17 million. When you're considering what, the Kardashians make, it's not a lot, but for a small little company to make 17 million, it was pretty awesome. And eventually I got to hosting where I am today. Our hosting company does in excess of 130 million a year, which is pretty amazing. So if you can go to the next slide, I really want you guys to know that no matter what your circumstances, no matter your home life, no matter, your grades, there is a place for you in tech. You are the boss of your own destiny, and all you got to do is go and get it. Find a place that looks for diversity in their leadership. That's how you're going to find a cool company that's going to value you no matter what. And I'm talking about all kinds of diversity. If you go to the next slide, there are jobs at every level. And this is probably not a popular topic with your school, but you don't have to go to college to work in tech. You certainly can. I did, and most of our leadership did. But if you're not there, then that's okay. Ultimately, it's up to you what you want to do with your life. But I can tell you, working from home for 15 years, getting to hang out in this background, always being there for my kid and making really good money, web technology completely saved my life. And hopefully, if you're interested, you can reach out and we can help you find a place for you too.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. We really enjoyed your presentation. We're so glad to have you here today. It was really neat to hear about how you went from middle school to what you're doing today. And it gave our students a really great new perspective on web applications and what you do. So thank you so much for joining us. Okay, students, in order to stay on track, we're going to keep plugging along. If you need to reach up and stretch for a second to keep going, feel free to do so. But I'm going to keep going and introduce our next speaker. She is from a company that I think you all might be aware of, Verizon. So all of you who may have a cell phone, which I think is probably many of you probably have a Verizon cell phone, so you're going to be familiar with this company. So therefore, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Dr. Sanyogita Shamsunder. Dr. Shamsunder is the Vice President of Product Strategy and Operations with a 14-year track record developing profitable and competitive new technology for Verizon. So all the cool stuff you get to do with your phones. Dr. Shamsunder leads an impressive technology portfolio that has encompassed augmented reality, computer vision, location, quantum, and other security technology projects. Previously, she led Verizon's early 5G network technology development and trials, and launched the first 4G devices, as well as led various spectrum initiatives in collaboration with government and industry groups. Dr. Shamsunder's work experience spans all areas of the wireless business, including silicon, network technology development, marketing, planning and strategy for both enterprise and small businesses. Prior to Verizon, she has worked at Lucent Bell Labs, startups such as Sandbridge Technologies, Kestrel Solutions, and Stanford Telecom. She received her MBA from the Wharton School and a PhD in electrical engineering and math from the University of Virginia. That's a lot to think about right there. So please help me welcome Dr. Sanyogita Shamsunder.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. I'm so excited to be here on this beautiful Thursday morning. I'm losing track of days here. And I'm happy to talk about how I got to where I am and from the time that I was in, like, let's say, grade school, right? So next slide. So that's me. Many years ago, growing up in India, I was, the picture on the left was at a time when my parents left me and my sisters with my grandparents and had to go to the UK, to England for work for a couple of years. So I spent that time with my extended family, with my grandparents. So that was like 2 years of my time. And then I remember my dad sent a friend, a photographer friend. At that time, the cameras were not the best. My dad was very much into photography. He was a doctor, but he loved to take pictures. So he sent his friend over to take pictures of all of us, color pictures. So the first color picture. So that's the picture on the left. The picture on the right is me and my siblings at a medical exhibition. So growing up in a family of doctors, I was exposed to a lot of science in general, but more medical science than math. I didn't have many engineers around me, and I probably didn't even know what an engineer was. All I knew is I needed to study. I loved languages. I loved math. I loved math a lot. So more so than physics and chemistry and bio. So I continued taking advanced math classes. And then when it came to a choice of, okay, do I do math or biology, I decided, like, I like math, so I don't want to stop doing it. And that's how I got into engineering, actually, because I didn't know what engineers did. I didn't have role models around me. We didn't have shadowing programs. I was so excited to hear my peers here talk about shadowing. And this was many years ago when there were no computers. TV was just coming around in India. And then when I started engineering, I remember my grandfather asking me, can you fix this TV? This TV is not working. I said, no, I cannot fix this TV. I don't know how to do that. So anyway, I started engineering, and actually where I really got interested in exploring further what I'm doing today is in my final year of engineering school, where I had to choose a project, a senior design project. And that's where I got into something called signal processing, where you take signals like your speech signals, your audio signals, images, video, and process them to extract information out of it. So that's a big part of what happens in communications. That's a big part of what happens in all the tech that you see today. So that really got me interested in signal processing, and I said, I want to learn more. And that's when I applied to come here to the US. If you can go to the next slide. And again, nobody in my home had gone by themselves at the age of 20 to outside the country. So I applied to schools, and this was before the internet days. There's really no way to find out which school to apply. I had to go to the US library or the embassy and find books on which schools have good programs, and did a lot of research and applied and got into a few schools. Didn't know which was a good school or whatever. Ended up at the University of Virginia, where I did my PhD. And along the way, my husband, at that time, my fiance and boyfriend, also ended up doing a PhD with me. So me and my husband together studied, and these two pictures show the early days. I don't know that you see a TV. There's a small TV there. When I came to this country, I bought a small TV to watch the news, and I remember my earliest memories of the US are coming here with 2 suitcases, and didn't know anybody, had to, these were the times when you didn't have cell phones, didn't know who to call. And I have a vivid memory of traveling from DC to Virginia in a Greyhound bus, and because our school was kind of remote, it was really not, there was no direct bus. So I had to change buses a couple of times, and one stop was in the middle of the night in a small town in interior Virginia. And they just dropped me, actually, I was the only one, dropped me outside of this senior citizen home. And it was like 2 a.m. and I didn't know what to do, right? I'm doing collect calls because I didn't have money to call. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I still remember that moment where I was very scared. There were older people, older mostly women and older men. They wanted to know more. They wanted to talk, but I was just very, very afraid that I didn't know what was happening here. So anyway, long story short, the next bus came at like 5 o'clock in the morning and picked me up and dropped me where I was supposed to go. But that, just to give you a snapshot. I didn't plan my life, in a way that I knew that I was going to be doing engineering, or I was going to be a PhD. I'm going to go to the US. I'm going to work in this field. All I knew is I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be the best, learn. I mean, I have an insatiable appetite to go to school. So I keep telling people, if somebody can pay me, I'll go to school forever. Except I don't want to do the exams though. So anyway, so that's me. And unlike some people who know exactly where they want to be, I'm telling you, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And there are different paths, like I say, the careers take different paths. Some are straight, some are non-linear. Some you start with something, like Jessica said, she didn't like school, and then went on to do very well later. So I think that there are many different ways we can be successful. Be yourselves, bring your 100%, be curious, learn as much as you can is my mantra. So if you go to the next slide. So what do I do now, right? So I got my PhD, and then I really wanted to go into industry to build stuff. Like wireless was still very early. There was a lot of satellite communications at that time. And there was a lot of work in the defense industry. But I decided to go teach for a couple of years. I went to Colorado State, taught for a couple of years, enjoyed that. But at the same time, me and my husband were in 2 different states, and I felt like I wanted to get more hands-on experience. So I took a leave of absence and worked for a year at Stanford Telecom, and I really, really loved the work. I mean, I just the people, the work was so fantastic that I decided I'm quitting academia. I'm not going to teach. I want to get some experience building things. And that brought me to Bell Labs, and I spent time there. Then I said, okay, I want to go to a startup. I want more excitement of a smaller company. Bell Labs was a huge place. So I went to 2 startups. The first one didn't go anywhere, massive failure, right? And I found out I was pregnant at that time. I said, okay, well, let me find another job. So not everything that I did became a success, but lessons learned every single time that you take and move on, right? You don't spend time thinking about obsessing over what failed. You do take lessons learned. You should be mindful of what you learned there. Try not to make the same mistakes again. But sometimes it doesn't help to obsess over the past and look to the future. So then I had my second child, and I worked at another startup for about 5 years. Learned a lot. Contributed a lot, but I again felt like, okay, I'm not learning anymore. I need to change and move on. And I decided I was going to go to school to get a business degree. And that's when I went to Wharton. Very supportive family, my husband and my kids. My kids were 4 and 7 at that time in elementary school. And I would be studying on the weekends. I remember I had a chair in my daughter's room where I would wake up in the morning and study for a couple of hours before going to work. And she still remembers that fondly. So that brought me to Verizon. Okay, so what do I do at Verizon? I mean, all of you know Verizon, right? Hopefully all of you are Verizon customers. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And so I've been here for about 13 years. The first couple of years I spent building the phones, these phones, right? And remember the 4G days, like 2010, 2011, I helped build some of the first phones. Then I helped build the network, right? You see towers all over the country when you drive around. Some look like ugly trees. Some look like they're on top of a water tower or a huge tower sometimes when you go into remote areas. There is all that has radio equipment, as we call it, right? Cell sites, base stations, things that emit radio waves, right? And then those get received by the phones, and that's how you get to talk, to send texts and video and play games and so on and so forth. That connects you. So behind all of that is this invisible radio waves that are permeating everywhere, just like speech goes from you to me. In a room, these radio waves travel much farther. So I did that for a few years. And then I was asked to lead like the 5G program, which was relatively new. You know, we went from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G. I'm sure none of you know 3G, what 3G is, that we couldn't do any games. We couldn't do any video in the 3G days, but 4G and 5G is what brings you a lot of the exciting stuff that you can do. And then things like Pokemon Go, like augmented reality, right? It was limited, it was a great hit, but if you want to do something more immersive, like watch a video in augmented reality, like the Black Pumas that we did earlier this year, you need a lot of processing and bandwidth, as we call it, right? So you need 5G for all of that. So I work with my team and come up with these exciting applications and services that 5G brings to you, right? For education, for gaming, for healthcare, and so on. So that's my team. At the Super Bowl 3 years ago, where we showed what we can do with 5G, where you could go into the stadium and look at various angles of it. Remember, there are many cameras in a stadium. Look at many angles of the game from where you're sitting, right? You may be sitting somewhere in one corner, and you would be able to see an immersive angle from some other part of the stadium. And then now, when we talk about COVID and games, there were limited people going into the stadium, you could do that from home as well. So all this requires a lot of technology and bandwidth, and my team works with a lot of startups that build this, a lot of other companies such as the NFL and the NBA and the NHL. So come up with cool ideas that we can help develop with them, distribute content, and so on. So along my journey of 14 years, like I said, not everything that I've done has been successful. There have been projects which didn't go anywhere, worked very hard to make progress, but sometimes didn't get the adoption. It was early, for example, and they said, well, no, I don't think we want to do this. There are times when we had to go find somebody to solve a problem that we had, and we had to find somebody small. And typically companies like Verizon like to work with bigger companies, not smaller companies. So there was an uphill battle to fight internally to be able to work with small startups and smaller companies. So did that several times. So again, like I said, did I plan to be here? No. All I wanted to do is learn the most exciting, cool stuff. I mean, I didn't even know what wireless was until a few years ago. None of us knew. Technology is evolving so much that you can't know it all. But what you can do is prepare yourselves well for the future by being open, being willing to learn, and then tech is everywhere, right? You don't, again, as Robin said earlier today, you don't necessarily have to be. I don't work in the lab. There was points in my career where I did. I don't work there in a lab anymore, or I'm not by myself. I mean, as opposed to my husband, who likes to work in a lab and he likes to ponder on things and solve, hands-on problems. I'm a different type of an engineer. So all I'm saying, I think all of us are saying, is that there are very different types of careers available with a technology background. I mean, you can be a fashion designer. There's technology there, right? Being able to develop apps that use all the different things on the phone, the camera, the speaker, and so on, right? Having an understanding of how all that can work will help you in any field that you decide to go into, whether it be writing, or whether it be with fashion or healthcare, and so on. So follow your interests, right? Follow your but work hard and do well and be the best in that area. So next slide. And that's where, I mean, I see where there are problems, right? Go try to figure out what are some problems that need to be solved, like around you, whether it be fixing that the phone for your friend, or go fixing, I still sometimes tinker around at home, opening up. The other day I had an electric appliance that wasn't working, so I tried to fix it. It turned out it was a broken resistor or burnt resistor. Of course, it's not easy to find those parts these days. So because we have an economy that is a throwaway economy, but be curious to and understand, try and understand how things work and how can you be a problem solver, and that'll take you far. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shamsunder. We really appreciated having you here today. It was really cool to see what you do with our phones and your part in that. That's something our students, I'm sure, can all relate to, which is pretty neat. So we've really enjoyed having you and having you share your passions around STEM with our students. Now, let's hear from our final keynote speaker for today, Helen Schramer. Helen's professional story might hit home for some of you right now because she works for Pfizer, which is one of the companies that have brought the COVID-19 vaccine to our community members. So Helen joined Pfizer in May of 1998. In her role as principal scientist, she provides technical support for new and existing drug products, including the COVID-19 vaccine. She was on the global team responsible for bringing the COVID-19 vaccine from development to full-scale manufacturing. She designs manufacturing processes, optimizes existing processes to improve robustness, efficiency, and quality. Helen holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Illinois State University with double minors in biology and math. She began her career at Pfizer when she participated in the internship program immediately upon graduating from college. Upon conclusion of the internship, Helen was hired to a full-time position as a chemist in the quality control lab and has taken on many roles and positions with Pfizer in the years since. So without further ado, please help me welcome Helen Schramer.
Good morning. Hopefully you can see me. I'm Helen Schramer. I am a chemist at Pfizer, like I was introduced. We can go to the first slide and you guys can see a picture of me in 8th grade. There I am in 8th grade. That is from DeKalb, Illinois. DeKalb is known for its corn, barbed wire, and Cindy Crawford. I lived there with my brother and my 2 brothers and my parents. My mom was a librarian. My dad was professor there at Northern Illinois University. And they supported me throughout my journey and helped me kind of find my way. Again, I never knew I'd kind of end up here like many people. You start out just doing what you love to do. And so we can go to the next slide. I loved playing soccer and softball. I really enjoyed team sports and working together as a group to work to a common goal. So I knew that about myself, that I wanted to be in an environment where I worked with people. I also really enjoyed learning how to understand how things grow and how people heal. I really enjoyed doing science fair projects. I don't know if they do those anymore, but I did a science fair project where I had plants grow and learned how they would grow towards different light sources, and how plants kind of can move around things to get to that light. That was a really fun project, and I've done many science fair projects, in my lifetime. But this one was really fun until my brother killed all my plants. So it went okay, but at the end, I didn't have any plants to show. But we learned a lot. My dad helped me through that. We can go to the next slide. So in high school and even into college, I did something where I would volunteer. I thought I wanted to go into medicine. And so a good way to see if you like to do something is to volunteer in that area. Trying to volunteer in the emergency room, that was really exciting. When I was able to help people when they needed it the most. You learn a lot about what's required for those jobs. By volunteering in college, I worked with asthma and allergy research. So I got to see the other side of things, where you study and you learn about how, you learn how new medicine works, and how you can take drugs from just clinical, which is just the idea, and bring them all the way to manufacturing. So this is kind of where I found out how much I really enjoyed medicine. Go to the next slide. So in college, I actually started college in math. I really enjoyed math. I also enjoyed science, biology, and chemistry. What I really enjoy is there's a right answer. So I always knew that there was an answer to my problem. I just had to figure out how to get it. So I knew that if I could just break problems down and work into solving them, you could always get to that right answer. And so that was one thing that really I enjoyed. I enjoyed the labs in chemistry. That's what kind of pushed me from math over into chemistry, is where I got to really, play around with different sciences, where you can learn to work with analytical, which is working with machines and working with different ways to analyze things. That was one thing that was really cool that I really enjoyed. And so I did that for a couple semesters, and then I really got into biology and like immunology and learning more about wanting to become a doctor. So I'm then on a career path to become a doctor. My senior year in college, I studied abroad in Italy, and in Italy, I got to live there and study and to have the world experience. That I highly recommend if any of you have the opportunity to study abroad, be it an exchange student or in college. It really opened my eyes to the world and gave me some opportunities that I didn't have before. One thing I did have is when I was in Italy, we had computers, and I ended up getting an email from a college friend who actually was here in Kalamazoo, and he said, "I have an internship. And Helen, you're going to become an intern before you go to medical school." So we can go to the next slide. And as we've talked about, I started as a 7-month intern, and it's been 23 years. That's how many cool things there are to do in a pharmaceutical company. I never knew that there were so many opportunities. I always thought you just did lab work, right? So I did. I started out in the lab. I tested the materials that we make here in Kalamazoo. We make both the active ingredient, which is like the powder that goes into the drug product. I tested those. I also tested the final drug product, which is actually the creams or the liquids that we make. Injectables is one of the things that we make here in Pfizer and Kalamazoo. And I learned there that I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But then there was also so many other opportunities to do in a pharmaceutical company. You can work in a global function. I worked in a global function for a while, supporting the site in a way to help the labs. But then I found out that I really enjoyed production. So production is where we actually make the medicine. You can see here is the filling line where we're actually filling one of our most famous things is called an active vial, where you have a cake in the bottom and then you have a liquid in the top with a stopper in between, a little plug. And when you push down, the water goes from the top to the bottom and it activates it and it becomes a liquid then. So it's all in one component, and it's something that's really actually kind of cool. So if sometimes we have them at science fair events where you can actually push on them and you can actually see how they work. That's a very cool technology. So I got to go into production, and there I got to fix and improve processes. So yes, I had my chemistry background, but here I got to actually work with equipment to improve things. I got to, make things run better and faster, make things in a better way. So it's really a lot of problem solving, and you got to work with a lot of great teams. And that again is my theme, I think, is I really enjoy working in a group setting where a group is working towards a common goal, kind of like soccer and softball, right? You're working with a team to try to win the game. And here you're still trying to win a game, right? You're trying to get a medicine that helps people all over the world. So that brings me to the next slide. My most proud, I guess, project, as you guys know, a year ago, right, or more than a year ago, we had the COVID-19 virus show up, and we didn't have anything to help us protect ourselves. So, but Pfizer and BioNTech came together and they worked on an mRNA vaccine. mRNA vaccines are not new. mRNA technology is not new. It was actually created to fight cancer. And that technology then was used in another coronavirus, the SARS virus. So this mRNA technology is not brand new. It's not something we just made up. It's something that's been a known avenue as a vaccine. It worked really well for this COVID-19 vaccine virus. So Pfizer and BioNTech about a year ago came up with the chain, the information that's in the chain to tell your body what to do to protect itself and get ready for the virus when it shows up. So they had small lab studies, and they made smaller batches, and they made clinical lots, right? Clinical is where you test things out, and people volunteered to do this. And we found out that it worked really well. And at that time, nobody was making this vaccine. And so they came to Kalamazoo, and they said, Kalamazoo, we need you to make this vaccine, and we need you to make a lot of it. And we need you to make it fast. And so about March of last year, I think the team, we all looked at each other and we're like, oh my goodness sakes, how are we going to do this? But together as a team, we worked on bringing that to full scale manufacturing. You can see that the Kalamazoo site is a very large site. We have a really big building there on the far left. That is our building 41. That is our main building, and that is where all the magic happened. We started out working many hours, many weeks, and we got the small scale, which is the lab. We brought it to large scale, full scale manufacturing, it's called. And that's my team and I worked on new equipment, bringing in equipment, seeing how it works, seeing how we actually make what they did in a lab in a small beaker in a large tank. And how does it mix, right? And how do you then get that to the next area where you need to go to that filling line, like we saw before? We have to get the material into vials, right? And we have to make sure that we do it consistently and into the highest quality standard. So you have to run this thing, you have to run it many times to ensure that you have your process the way you want it and the way it's going to run. And we did this, and we made lots and lots of doses. We actually sent out the first trucks on December 13th. was all over the news. It was an early morning where people were out cheering on the trucks. It was very cool. We then have since then had some visitors. You can see that Biden and Whitmer have come to visit. I think Whitmer's come a couple times to come see how our operation is going and to be all the different parts and pieces, how they work together, right? It's a team, right? Every different piece and parts, even packaging, right? You can see those are the boxes that we put the material in, the vials in to ship them. You guys know that maybe you don't know, but this has to be shipped at really cold temperatures. So by reducing a temperature, you can help make a drug more stable. It helps keep it in a condition where it can last longer. So, if you heat it up, it won't last as long. So we try to keep these things as cool as possible. So we use a lot of dry ice when that's a really cool process to watch all the dry ice. But since they visited, we've done lots of really great things. We've made millions and millions of doses, and we continue to improve our process. And we are hoping to get it out so that we can get approval. I know we just got approval yesterday for 12 to 15-year-olds in Canada to receive the vaccine. I received the vaccine. It's one of the first 12 at the site. National Geographic had come and videotaped and got those moments where the first 12 of us got to be vaccinated. So it's been a very exciting process and project, but I never would have guessed I would have been here. I started out just wanting to do math and playing soccer and, doing experiments. And then you just kind of follow a path and you end up finding what you really enjoy. And before you know it, you're, saving the world that's what we always say. So we go to the last slide. And my statement to you is, if I can do it, so can you. We all can do amazing things, even on our own, but as a team. So don't feel like you have to do all of this by yourself. There's so many people out there to help you. There's so many people that will love to help and, take the opportunity to volunteer, to reach out to people, to understand things more. That's one thing that we all, I think, hopefully enjoy is to learn and grow. And so I hope all of you continue on. And thanks for letting me talk to you guys today.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Thank you, Helen. We really appreciate you joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing a little bit about what you do with Pfizer and sharing your excitement about STEM and your job there to bring the COVID-19 vaccine to all of us. So we truly appreciate having you today.